research now on Candida overgrowth in the body. So something really interesting that I've just read on someone doing research on it. It says the most studied and important virulence attribute of Candida albicans is its ability to reversibly switch morphologies between being yeast, pseudo-hyphal, and true hyphal growth. Temperature, CO2, pH, serum, quorum, sensing molecules, nutrient availability, and hypoxia all regulate morphogenesis. I'm not sure what that is at all, in fact. As outlined above, each of these morphologies play distinct roles in colonization and parasitism, and inhibitions of morphogenesis dramatically inhibits fungal virulence. I'm missing out the bit where it was saying that Candida becomes differently. It changes its state between, that's it. It's a spectrum of symbiotic relationship. So Candida can be commensal, parasitic, mutualistic, or amensalistic. This, it is explained, those 4 different things means, let me find it, it's easier than me trying to say it and getting it wrong. Okay, let's see. Okay, so symbiosis. What is symbiosis? It's something that happens between different organisms, in this case fungi or yeast, and the human ecosystem. Symbiosis is a type of long-term close biological relationship between 2 or more species. These relationships can be either mutualistic, all organisms benefit, commensalistic, which is one organism benefits without affecting the other, parasitic, one organism benefits at the expense of the other, or amensalistic, one organism is inhibited or obliterated while the other is unaffected. For example, most host pathogens interactions are parasitic with a pathogen, causing damage to the host. However, periods of latency during an infection may be classed as commensal relationships, as damage to the host is minimal during this period. So it said then that Candida is a commensal fungus of the orogastrointestinal and genital tract in up to 80% of healthy individuals. But it can transform from its commensal state to a parasitic state, causing mucosal and life-threatening systemic disease. So it's a commensal. So it said in my summary there, the most studied and important virulence attribute of Candida albicans is its ability to reversibly switch morphology between yeast, pseudo-hyphal, and true hyphal growth. No. Damn it. It says here on the same article, treatment with oral antifungals perturbs the intestinal microbiome, reducing the population of Candida albicans while promoting the expansion of Aspergillus, Wallemia, and Epicoccum, and causing increased allergy, airways disease. allergic airway disease. On the other hand, the use of oral antibiotics depleted the bacterial composition of the gastrointestinal tract microbiome, promoting the expansion of Candida. The consequence of Candida overgrowth is controversial, but the role of Candida remains to be determined. What I'm getting to here is that it seems, and I've known that a long time, that Candida, as I read in someone else's study earlier, which wasn't quite a study, was that Candida is a way for the body to have one last defense before more dangerous diseases come up, which is what I always thought. So the fact that I've had athlete foot for 20 years and that it's slowly grown despite everything I was doing to it shows me that there is an imbalance somewhere. Not just in my body, there is a link between heavy metals and Candida. Because it's interesting that the Candida changing its state. And there was that image that I wanted to show, which was why I did this video really, which is copyrighted, but you see, where's the camera is here. You see this pink picture with the cells, and you see the Candida, which is a yellow part that makes the two strands from the top of the skin right into the cells, and then it goes into the bloodstream, and there it is eaten by the immune system. But you can also see other bacteria going into the blood, just one, but the macrophage jumping through the cells, slowly moving through the cells towards the skin to eat up the macrophage. No, not the macrophage, the Staphylococcus. Anyway, what it shows me, this diagram shows me, I understand my state. It's chaos, isn't it? I understand how anxiety can make these things worse. When I look at this diagram and I see all this going on, and our skin, our immune system fighting its best, and this inflammation that happens, it's really all really interesting. Really interesting. So I'm really lucky to have a Candida problem. I've not got cancer. And of course I've not got diabetes, which is also one of the things. If you've got diabetes, you're more likely to have Candida problem, because it's a blood sugar imbalance. Candida feed on sugar, but their possible symbiotic relationship with our bodies really interests me. I've always suspected that the fungal overgrowth was there because of toxins, which is why doing things like eating clay, and so it's not cured it. Zeolite, things that take out heavy metals on the skin, as well, having baths with clay. All that helps our system to detox, therefore making it less suitable for parasites to be there, and make the Candida go back to its state of commensio instead of parasitico. It interests me very much. I may be dead before I understand all this, and if it happens that way, never mind. But I'm really thinking right now what's really important is breathing regardless of the lump, everything, because that lump came up my dear uterus, sorry, I shouldn't call it the lump, I should call it my dear uterus. That came up very strongly during the first sweat lodge the other day. I did not do another video about the sweat lodges because I felt overwhelmed with everything I had to process. But right now, I feel really interested. I want my thumb to grow back. I really want it. And it's not just the antifungals that are going to make it grow back. See, when my hands got bad was during my plumbing my plumbing course in 2013. I was touching a lot of chemicals. There was big exposure to lead because we were doing lead roofing, and the lead dust was all over the school, literally. The tables were covered in dust of black stuff. So my fingers started getting bad as the cat I had rescued scratched me. One of my fingers swelled up and then healed, but my fingers, it's where the infection of whatever it is, the inflammation in the winter, the big red thing started to show. Obviously all plumbers do not have problems like I have, and I'm not even a plumber. I've only done 6 months in an environment full of lead toxin, which I guess we breathe it in, so it's a very heavy powder. I'm talking out of my own common sense there. It's obviously not the truth. I'm not a scientist nor a doctor, but I make suggestions by observing what I have been through and to see what it could be that has brought this forward. So the lead exposure 2013. Before that, well, I had started to get the problem on the thigh, the ringworm they call it. It's a fungal infection on the thigh, so that was before that. But after 2013, it slowly got to different places. It got better, then it got worse. I did all sorts of detox, including using clay, but what has made the most difference lately is having a week away by the seaside and dipping my feet and hands in the water every day, twice a day. That was my healing protocol. And then going to the sweat lodges, I had 2 sweat lodges, one evening, the next afternoon. And through sweating a lot, I've used cold water afterwards, which is the first time in my life I've actually had cold water over my head. I said it in the previous video. It's I feel much cleansed from that. I also did a juicing only couple of day and a half before the first sweat lodge. So that's supposed to be cleansing, but obviously in the Candida point of view, you're feeding a lot of sugars through the raw juice, but you know, what can you do? You can only try these things. It didn't get worse, and my inflammation is a lot lesser since the inflammation here. I've not really talked about my ailments very much on video because it's something that I'm ashamed of, which doesn't matter anymore really, because if we want to be honest, we have to be honest about everything, don't we? So this is a lot less inflamed now. I do not know what that was, but to me it looked like a fungal problem. They have been scratched today by a rose, but this here, that part of the fleshy part of the finger has been inflamed and round, like, what do you call it, like those chilblains. Well, the thing is, my chilblains are lumpy. It's bizarre. Chilblains should be just fully fat, but this one is just sort of local. So I think there's a link there still, and I think I want to carry on with detoxing, but also I need to detox my mind because my mind is still full of anxiety about the future, about whether I'll be alive another 40 years, and if I am, how am I going to do to keep alive and keep a roof over my head, being the light-headed person that I am, and spending all my money on holiday, which was wonderful, but now it's got to come back in. So there is that anxiety, but this time I'm choosing not to give in to it, because in the past with debts, it's been an obsession on money, on feeling poor, and on not feeling I was unable to create or to get that money. Wonders did happen, the review did happen, and huge amounts came in, clearing a huge amount of my debt. There's still some debt around, but a lot less now. So I do not want to go back into the worry of that. It's going. I'm not giving into it. Now the other anxiety has been in the last 6 months to a year since COVID. Oh, we're not allowed to talk about that, are we? Is the worry that the governments would start monitoring people in real rigid ways, like, well, they have done in France. But all this worry, there's good news from the French, apparently the French politicians getting together to go against Macron. It's not about the COVID, but it's about his policies in some ways. So that's a good news. But I also watched other videos this morning. 2 videos really made me feel a lot better. The guy with the ginger hair called JP Sears, he's a comedian, but he's American. He really goes against the whole propaganda about what events have happened lately. Though, of course, he's not right with everything, but it doesn't matter. That first video I watched, what was it? It made me feel so much better. Well, I can't remember the first one, but it was like a declick in, I don't need to worry so much anymore. His second video was about the WHO and do you want to be a young leader? If you are, you have to have certain criteria and become one and come and mold the world into what Klaus Schwab wants it to become. But that was very funny, but it was also very good. And the other video which really helped was that one where he oddly talked about abortion. And he said there is some very strange propaganda about abortion at the moment. I've not seen it. Obviously, I don't read the papers, nor watch TV, but there is something about they are encouraging women to have abortions. So told because there is an overgrowth of population on the planet and it cannot feed us all. And everything that's linked with so-called overpopulation. And he said something interesting. He said, this not having children and having the less children we can means there will be less people, which means the people who will be alive will be easier to control because there's less of them, by those mega organizations who want to mold the planet into a certain way, using GM crop, artificial intelligence, implants in our bodies and all the rest. So that was an interesting point. And then it was nice because he said, if I was a woman, obviously he's not one, he said if I was raped, I would want an abortion. So he's not totally anti-abortion, which was nice to see. And also he talked about the people who are in relationships, well, not even relationships, who have sex with other people in, what did he call it? A situation that was disempowering for the woman. So she was there for reasons that were not the reasons you would want to be with someone and having sex with them. And I was in that situation when I once was pregnant and I had an abortion. So it was interesting. It made me feel more at peace. It made me think that, there is sense in the world. There are people who have, they're balanced. They can see both sides and they're not just one extreme or the other extreme. And one video I've also watched, was it last night? Really helped me. Do you know the channel called After Skool? If you do, their last video was about population decline. And it was, I think he's called Peter Anderson or something like that. And there was the other guy, what's his name? The one who does the electric cars, he was on there. But anyway, and there was a third person. But they were talking about the population decline and the problems that are associated with that. Mainly the problem of aging population and nobody to look after them. But the Peterson person said something that really touched me. He said, to say the world is overpopulated is a genocidal statement, as in it's a judgment to say there are too many of us on there. And to hear that from a man, I don't usually listen to his podcast because I find him a bit extreme. There's a lot, I don't agree with him on a lot of things. But to hear that really made me think, what have I been thinking all this time? I've been believing this thing of we are overpopulated, shit is going to happen because there's too many of us. But he also said, this is the only time in probably, well, we don't know, but in the history of the planet Earth that will be alive at the same time as so many others of us. And it's a precious time. And to hear that has made me feel a lot better. So it starts with a fungal infection and a Candida infection and problem, which really is like my body in its own chaos, trying to find a balance and going to thinking about the world around me, society, population control by the WHO and other bodies who have not been elected, and even if they had been elected, they do things we don't agree with, don't they? They mandate things we do not want in our lives. It's all very interesting. To go back to the sweat lodge, I wanted to talk a little bit about it. Should I show you my drawings or should I do that on another video? I think I will do it on another video. It's about shame, and that came up a lot, but I'll watch the previous video first to see how much I've said, because it's a bit silly to repeat oneself. I will be back maybe later, or maybe not. If I'm not, it's because I'll run out of inspiration, or I'm having my dinner. À tout à l'heure.